Welcome and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session. Today, we are presenting entrepreneurship in India from ego to eco. This is very essential to have some insight into entrepreneurship as a faculty also. India is one of the fastest growing startup ecosystem in the world. The young minds need to be nurtured in the educational institutes. But as a faculty, this is a real challenge, and this is something like giving coaching to a cricketer by a swimmer. So meeting the challenges of this century requires updating our economic logic and operating system. From an absolute ecosystem focused entirely on the well-being of oneself to an ecosystem awareness that emphasizes the well-being of the whole. We need leadership for the fourth industrial revolution. Unlearning social entrepreneurship in the fourth industrial revolution is vital for business processes, socioeconomic networks, and so on. Let us get some inside secret from someone who has the experience and expertise in this area. Now, without further ado, we will turn our time over to our expert. So please join me in welcoming our expert. Jeremy Fritzhand is Managing Director at Studio Bagru, Rajasthan, India. He is also Adjunct Professor in Avantika University, Ujjain, Madhya Pradesh. A native of Cincinnati, Ohio, Jeremy first came to India in 2009 as a part of his anthropology studies that he was undertaking in New York. His class visited the village of Bagru in Rajasthan, and he became immediately inspired. He returned in 2010 as an entrepreneurial fellowship awarded to him by his school, Union College. Working and living in Bagru, he became committed to preserving what was then considered to be a dying art, that is, block printing. Jeremy considers the Studio Bagru as an entrepreneurial bridge to the artisans, where he and his local team provide supports to designers wanting to work ethically and sustainably, helping them with sourcing, production, and quality control. Dear delegates, please welcome Jeremy Fritzhand. Welcome, Jeremy. This session is yours. Please.
Hi, thank you so much, Roman. That was great. I'm just seeing if I can turn the video on here.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thanks again, Roman. And I hope you can hear me all right. If you're having trouble hearing me, please let me know, and I'll try to fix the problem. So also thank you to Nagaon Polytechnical Institute for letting me come and speak with all the members today, the instructors and some students, I believe, that are attending today's session. So just a quick check, is the audio okay? Now I'm just on the one device, it should be better.
Yes.
Okay, if you have you made me the presenter then? All right, so thanks again to Roman for inviting me to speak with you today. My name is Jeremy Fritzhand. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and for the last 10 years, I've been working in the textiles and apparel industry, specifically with a group of artisans in Rajasthan, near Jaipur, in a place called Bagru. So I'll just turn my video off now, and I'm going to share the presentation. And then we'll just to present mode. Talking. Excuse me. This is a presentation I use when I speak to both instructors and students alike. It's in order to think about the concept of my work in a different perspective. So the name of the presentation is From Ego to Eco. I'll give you a little background about myself, and then we'll discuss what it means from ego to eco. The last 50 years in fashion and supply chain, fashion capitalism, the Rana Plaza disaster, and fashion revolution, ethical and sustainable fashion, the price-quality paradox, and the artisan diaspora of India, and finally a business project, which is a pitch deck that I use for teaching people about entrepreneurship. So I'm from West Union, Ohio, a state in the Midwest of the United States. I got my Bachelor of Science at Union College in Schenectady, New York. I got my from Harvard School of Global Management in Phoenix, Arizona. In 2010, to Bagru, which is a town approximately 1 hour west of Jaipur. So in Bagru, they've been creating hand block printed textiles for the last 400 years. And each part of the process is specialized, from making of the wooden blocks, printing, dyeing, and cutting the fabric. It's all done there in Bagru. And so I was visiting Bagru as a student in my college because my anthropology professor had done her PhD research there 10 years earlier. And so she had some connections with the local community. And I ended up living and working with a home-based artisan there from June of 2010. Originally, I had the idea to move there and create a new business model that would connect the home-based artisans with the buyers and designers around the world. At that time, there was just a little bit of online sales, and so our strategy was to help with branding, marketing, and social media to get the home-based artisans online to connect with their buyers from around the world. So I wrote a plan of living there, working there, and bringing designers from around the world to Bagru. So what is ego and what is eco? So for me, ego is all about the I and the me. And in this current state of the 21st century, there is a lot of overconsumption. And so what is eco? Eco is eco-friendly, environmental, and sustainable. And so what does it mean going from ego to eco? It means that going from an old system to a new system. Specifically in textiles, it has to do with removing this fast fashion and overconsumption and moving towards more sustainable and eco-friendly solutions. So I'll give a little bit of an overview of the last 50 years of fashion supply chain. So around the 1950s, as India opened up to trade, more and more designers and buyers were coming to India to source their products. Normally, their fabric would be made in Europe or North America. And when India opened up to trade, more and more products became available, such as the cottons, linens, and silks. But as the retail fashion industry advanced in the 80s and 90s, there was more pressure on the costing. And so due to the cost pressures, these Western retailers began outsourcing their products to India. And where we are based in Rajasthan, they started to collaborate with the designers from outside of India. Oops. Hold on one moment. Can you hear me?
Yes. You can continue. We are here. We are audible now.
Okay, so now that I know that you can hear me, sorry, Roman has come to check. So we'll start with all right, so I'll just get back to the describing Bagru as a microeconomy. In Bagru, like I mentioned, it has nearly 400-year history of hand block printing. It's said that Bagru itself gets the name from Bagoda, which was an island in a river in that area. So sometime during the 17th and 18th from a neighboring region of Jaipur to Bagru to begin producing hand block printed textiles. So hand block printed textiles means that the wood is carved using a wooden hammer and chisel. And as you can see in this picture, they make wooden blocks, and using the natural inks and dyes, the designs are printed onto the fabric. And so over the 18th and 19th century, this town became very successful in hand block printing because the rivers of the river, the riverbeds in the river provided an ideal place for the fabric to dry. It was a very sandy riverbank, and so they were able to dry the fabric very efficiently. There was also some essential minerals that were carried in that river to have the process of washing the fabric. So over the years, until the late 20th century, the designs continued being developed, and the mastery of the craft was also at a very high level. The fabrics adorned with these designs were used for very special occasions, and you can see in some of the they're called jajams. These are community textiles. When you go to some of these rural areas, they are almost 10 meters by 10 meters, and they're used for special occasions. So if we fast forward to the 1980s, there was an influx of demand for a low-cost textile, which led to a lot of cost pressures on this community, as more and more buyers were placing orders and not paying the right amount for the product. This is when the outsourcing from Europe and the Americas began happening. And so there was a significant cost pressure on the final product, which took a toll on the traditional knowledge and designs. So in the 90s and early 2000s, a lot of these traditional designs and processes were left, and a new system of design and printing was created. So all of the natural inks and dyes that were being created using the ingredients from the local Okay, hopefully you can hear me all right now.
Hi,
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so a lot of these local traditional techniques and ingredients stopped being used. and more chemical ingredients and faster processes started becoming popular. And so the whole system and economy of block printing in Bagru was changing. And when I arrived in 2010, there was mostly a lot of pressure to convert the block printing into modern printing techniques, such as screen printing or digital printing. And so many members of the community were concerned about the long-term sustainability of the craft in general. So the first issue that we wanted to focus on was promotion of the craft and making the buyer understand how easy it could be to collaborate with the home-based craftsperson. Because they had been used to working with middlemen, intermediaries, wholesalers, and textile agents. So, for example, a buyer in London or New York would work with an agent in one of those cities, who would then have an agent in Delhi or Mumbai, and they would have a network of suppliers across India for textiles. Those network of suppliers would then have contacts with the actual makers. If it was weaving, it would be in a rural area. And so what we wanted to do was create a seamless collaboration so that the designer on one side of the supply chain could work right next to the maker, who in this case was the block printer on the other side of the supply chain. And so we addressed this by putting out a notice to any designers and textile fashion people that were interested to come to Bagru and collaborate with us directly. And so within a few months of living there, we were able to get a few buyers from some large US retailers to come to Bagru and work directly with these artisans. And so the second problem that we were trying to fix was the pricing and costing structure. So due to the network that they had been used to working with intermediaries, agents, and wholesalers, the designer was used to paying almost 10 times as much as the fair or local market rate for the product was. For example, the artists in Bagru at the time were being paid just 7 to 10 rupees per meter for printing on the fabric. The actual textile itself was delivered by the intermediary, and then it was just printed and embellished by the artisan. So in total, the cost of the raw material and the printing wouldn't be more than 50 rupees. And those intermediaries that would then sell it to a wholesaler at almost double the price, to 100 rupees, who would then sell to an agent for nearly 200 rupees a meter, and then finally to another exporter at around 400 rupees per meter. And when it finally is sold to the buyer, whether it's in New York or London, it's almost 10 times as much as the cost of good. And so we wanted to even this supply chain equation so that the maker was going to earn more and the buyer was going to pay less. And that's when we really saw a big breakthrough. So in around 2011, due to some of the promotion that we were doing, we got in touch with a new fashion designer from New York named Block Shop Textiles. They were the first big brand that realized the model that we were building was going to be successful, and so they started working with us. And they used their network online and a network of retailers across the US to get their product to the buyers. And it was the first time in fashion where there was a story being told about the product. previously, if we look at the evolved retail model, we see a lot of these big stores. In India, they're Reliance Trends and Big Bazaar, Shoppers Stop, all of these chain stores that actually make a low-cost product in order for the consumer to buy it more and more. And so that's another issue that we wanted to tackle, was this stigma against handmade. So in North America and Europe, we realized that the end consumer had been groomed by large retailers to purchase products in a certain way. And that trend was due to nearly billions of dollars of marketing that was on television and social media in order to convince the end consumer to continuously buy apparel products. Two of the largest known retailers are Zara and H&M. These retailers provide new fashion or fast fashion, which means every 2 weeks the products in their store are changing in order to encourage the buyer to assume that their product is out of date or out of fashion. So our role as a maker in Bagru was to re-educate the consumer about the importance of supporting craft and artisan made and handmade. So we did this by telling a story. We hired content creators to make videos and to write blog posts and articles so that we were able to have more people understand the work that we were doing and to realize why it's important to support art and handmade. So this brings us to around 2012, and at this time, I would say that the retail industry had almost reached a pinnacle where people were buying so much new clothing that they couldn't even supply the new products in time. And so almost all of these, what we call new Asia garment sources were starting to flood the market with these cheap products. And at the same time, some of the makers, some of the factories were not able to keep up with all of the demands of the buyers in the fast fashion industry. And they weren't able to keep up with the pricing strategy. And so what happened was they were overlooking a lot of the issues faced by the actual makers. And when we look at that on an industrial level, it has consequences that cost human lives. And so this is actually bringing us to 2013, which was the Rana Plaza disaster in Bangladesh. And this was a factory collapse that killed and injured thousands of garment factory workers. And the effect could be seen all over the world. It was the first time that an incident like this had happened where the Western media picked up on a catastrophe that was caused by their overconsumption of textiles and fashion. It was found in this factory that the garments of these large retailers were being produced. And the reason the factory collapsed was the lack of oversight about the safety of the building. And so they were more focused on creating more and more products than the actual safety of the workers. And it took its toll. And it was the first time that the consumer began to see the environmental and social impact that their overconsumption was having. And in response to this event, many of the European retailers and North American retailers signed agreements that they would have more transparency in their supply chains. So it was the first time they were admitting that what they were doing was wrong, and it was time to find a new system. And the fashion revolution movement started as to mark the anniversary of this Rana Plaza disaster. And it was a big impact on our work because it made people think about the products, the textiles and apparel that they're buying. And it made them think about who is actually making these products and where they're coming from and how much the people are being paid to make the products that they're wearing. Clothing has always played a very important role in our lives. And now, when we see this massive shift in the fashion industry, it's great to see that finally, as the title of this presentation, From Ego to Eco, is actually being realized. So from 2014, we saw a big influx of interest from outside in Bagru. More and more designers and buyers and travelers were coming directly to the source of this craft in order to work with the artisans and understand this handmade industry that actually dates back thousands of years. So what is ethical and sustainable fashion? And that is actually what we're going to discuss next, is how do we move from this old system or evolved system of fast fashion to a new system that supports craft industries? So the first step is to now work with as many of the up-and-coming designers as possible in order to have them create fashion and textile consumables with actual maker communities. So what we want to promote is bringing these two parties together in order to seamlessly integrate fashion into our lives and not make it into a corporatization of fashion. So we have to work with institutions, craft institutions and fashion institutions that are able to pair recent graduates to these craft communities.
Hello, Jeremy, can you please keep your video on if possible? Then it will be better. Please try once. Because of technical difficulties, he is facing some problem to share the slides, but still we can hear him. Okay, thank you. Please continue.
Yes. Okay. And so we were at the ethical and fashion, sustainable fashion. So that's kind of the new stage of where we are at in my industry. New designers and retailers from with
Jeremy, please continue with audio only because
we are connecting these two parties. It's also, is there an issue with the connection?
connectivity is low, so please continue with audio only, no need to.
Okay, can you still hear me all right there?
Yes, it's like we can hear you.
All right, so as we are connecting these two parties together, the designers on one side of the equation and the makers on the other, it's important that we protect the rights and traditional knowledge of the makers. This is something that has been neglected over the last few decades. As more and more makers are coming to India to create things and outsource the production, oftentimes the traditional knowledge and intellectual property of the community is disregarded. And so what we need to do is create a system that protects these design rights of the craft communities, as well as the intellectual property rights of this traditional knowledge. So what we've done is partnered with an organization called the Cultural Intellectual Property Rights Initiative, who's headed by the Monica Moisen, and she's based in Berlin, and she works with craft communities around the world, protecting the traditional knowledge and design rights of these communities. So in 2016, we first had a chance encounter with a designer from New York who wanted to collaborate with the women artisans in Bagru. There was one slide, I think, in Roman's introduction that had many pictures there. Those are some of the members of the Mahila Print organization that we started. So we were met with Petra Valentova of New York, who was a fashion designer who had come to Bagru to do her PhD thesis work. And so she began working with us and collaborating with the women artisans in Bagru in order to come up with a new system of design. And so using solar paper or photographic cenotypes, nature walks, and found elements of nature to create designs on the paper. And so using this collaborative design process, the women artisans that we were working with in Bagru came up with new motifs. And from those motifs, Petra scanned the motif and used Photoshop to arrange the designs into a repeat pattern. Pattern was printed, and we made these to wooden printing blocks. They were then printed on fabric, and we created running material of the designs. So in this collaborative process, there was a lot of different elements. We had the design framework that Petra made. We had the actual designs, which were made by the craftspeople, and then we have the making process, which was the block printing. So each part of this intellectual property we wanted to protect. And so we met with Monica Moisen of the Cultural Intellectual Property Rights Initiative in order to come up with a legal framework to protect everyone's rights in this equation. And so what we've done is created a system called Mahila Print. There's a website that we can also, I'll share at the end of the presentation, called mahilaprint.com. And it's a way for designers around the world to collaborate and work with the printers in Bagru and ensure that the intellectual property and cultural property of all of the stakeholders is protected. So I think this is a good point where maybe I could take a couple of questions before we continue with the rest of the presentation. If anybody in the audience has a question about starting a business in India or collaborating with craft communities or traditional knowledge holders, I'd be happy to answer a few questions at the moment, since we've been going for around half an hour now.
Yes, anybody, any question, please?
I know we have a lot of the instructors here for the engineering fields. And so I'm also happy to draw a couple parallels. If you can give me any sort of idea of the type of projects or collaborations that you might be undertaking, I'm also happy to show how these sort of frameworks could benefit.
So participants, if you have any questions, you can ask our expert. Otherwise, he will continue. Okay, there may, I think no question at this point.
Okay, that's fine. So great. So a little bit more about this Mahila print project, actually. So finally, we launched this project at the beginning of last year, just before the lockdown started. So unfortunately, it hasn't seen that much interest yet. But I can share with you a little bit of how we were able to adapt during the lockdown as well. I think it's a really interesting business case for no matter which field you're in. Obviously, some fields were less affected than others, but our business was affected in a few different ways. We offer three different business streams. We have a retail business, which is the shop in Jaipur. We have a retail outlet featuring textile products, apparels, and accessories. And then we have an online business, which is through our Instagram and our website. We have a wholesale business as well, which is exporting the textiles and textile products around the world to buyers in fashion, in home textiles, commercial textiles, and raw materials. And then our third business stream is through education. We offer workshops and design experiences for visitors in Jaipur and Bagru, as well as other locations around the world. Jaipur itself is a major tourist hub, so nearly 4 million tourists travel through Jaipur every year. And we are targeting the visitors to join us for a workshop in Bagru to learn about block printing and to make their own block printed product. So in March, when the lockdown happened, immediately our supply chain was basically stopped. We weren't able to ship any of the products out of India for the first, I believe, almost 1.5 to 2 months. March and April, everything really stopped. And so luckily we had clients that were understanding of the situation. Some clients did cancel the orders, but we were able to convince others to maintain the orders and wait until the shipping opened up to receive the products. It was the end of the tourist season, so very less amount of visitors were coming at that time. But still then we shut down our workshop space in order to protect the safety of the craftspeople and the visitors alike. We no longer saw the guests in Bagru. Instead, what we just
yes, there is a. Can I interfere with you, Jeremy? Actually, there was one question from one participant.
Yes.
Can you? Yeah, the question was: is the collaboration of local artisans need to be done from any third party, or any entrepreneur can join hands with them directly?
So it's very important, I think, to understand the needs of the craft community or the artisan. It's not necessarily needed for a third party, but it's important that all of the expectations are explained before the collaboration begins. It's really important that there's no disadvantage to one of the parties, so that whether in the creation of a business or a business model, one of the parties has more rights or more power than one of the other parties. And so that's when it gets a little bit complicated. It's always good that there's equality throughout the supply chain. That's why we decided to work very closely with a lawyer who was focused on that subject of cultural intellectual property. For many, decades, and even, across time, this cultural intellectual property of traditional craft communities has been appropriated and stolen without any credit, consent, or compensation. Those are the three C's of cultural intellectual property, which are important to remember. We have credit, so we need to give credit to the community for the work that they're doing. We have consent, which means that they're okay to do some sort of collaboration and they've given us approval for working with them. And you have compensation, which is the remuneration that you're giving that community for the work that they're doing. And it's really important to keep each of these three C's in mind when working with any traditional community. You can even use this in any other sort of collaboration. You want to make sure that all the parties are comfortable with the work, the input, and the output, and that each of those variables is accurately, appropriately, and evenly addressed.
Okay, there is another question from Sayanika Das. Where can we get information about the workshops that your organization give?
Thank you for the question. Workshops, I can share a few links in the chat or with Raman, and he can probably send out an email. But the place that you can find about the block printing business is studiobagru.com. That's studiobagru.com. I think I actually have the chat open now. And I'll also share with you this virtual workshop. So that's my next topic, is how we created virtual workshops during the lockdown. Let's see if I can.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes?
Sir, it was that time when polyester garments were not introduced in India. In India, we generally that time used cotton clothes, but it was the legendary Sir Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani who introduced the polyester clothes in the Indian market, and the clothes were long lasting than the cotton clothes and were more cheap. But at that time he faced many political and social opposition. Even though his intention was good to provide cheap clothes and the best quality to every people of India. So in today's world, how can we overcome this type of social and political against while doing this type of businesses?
Thank you so much for your question. A really important question, and it's actually the most pressing question of our generation, because these types of products, in my opinion, are causing a lot of environmental disaster in our world. And actually, these types of fibers and products also encourage a production mindset of overconsumption and mass production and corporatization of fashion. India has a wealth of traditional weaving, traditional printing, and embellishment.
Please continue. There was some background noise from some participants. Okay.
India's wealth of knowledge about traditional textile is beyond any other nation in the world, pretty much. The amount of diversity and complexity and mastery of weaving, printing, and textile embellishment cannot be matched by any other nation. And so what we need to do in order to combat the issues of appropriation and overconsumption, mass production, and as for your question about promoting cotton and natural fibers, it's up to this everybody actually to make a conscious effort in our buying habits to purchase items that we actually care about, love, and will cherish. So instead of purchasing a low-cost polyester product that is not very well recyclable, it's better that you try to find a natural fiber product that you're going to be able to use and cherish and enjoy. Another part of it is also being open to discussion and talking about this issue with your friends and family and known people, so that you can educate them about the issue. A lot of people, they just don't understand the history of fiber and fashion and textiles, and the way that it's turned into a kind of an environmental and social disaster. So when they understand it more, when you share these types of points with them, then it changes their point of view to realize, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't support a certain type of textile, or I should only buy from khadi or from a traditional community who's making clothing. So I hope that answers your question. I think it was Nehal. Are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So I've also I've shared a link in the chat. You can see the first link is our website, and the second link is a YouTube video to a virtual workshop that my team has created. So the virtual workshops, I think, are actually a really amazing opportunity for instructors and students to connect on a range of topics. For us, it worked out to be making something. We participated recently in Ahmedabad Design Week with the help of Swarnam Startup and Innovation University. So I'll share a link to that as well. We were able to incorporate toy making, the design of toy making and block printing together. So in a 1-hour workshop period, what we did was we drew the design of a stuffed toy animal. We printed the design, cut the design from the fabric, and then stitched the design together. And so we saw a lot of interest in this, and they wanted to make more toys actually out of the fabric. And we've also taken place in the World Fair, Selvage World Fair, which is a design festival based in London. Okay, so we have a question here from one of the participants. How can computer science engineers be of any help to your community? That's also a great question, because connecting technology and traditional craft is a a really big topic now, because it's not like we can completely go back to traditional ways and traditional knowledge and techniques. We have to seamlessly integrate ourselves with the technological and computer advancements that we're going through right now. And so the easiest way that we've began to integrate with computer and technology in our community is through these virtual workshops and being able to work remotely. And so how can your question, how can computer science engineers be of help to our community? There's a few ways. The first way, I think, is to think of new and innovative ideas to collaborate virtually with these two communities. So for our example, the makers that we work with are in Bagru, Rajasthan. It's not a very remote area, but it's about 1 hour from a city of 1 million people. And so how do we connect those makers with their consumer? So first we have to figure out who their consumer is, whether it's the person that's purchasing a bed sheet or a sari or a dress, or is it a retailer who's buying products for their business, or is it a hobbyist who just wants some fabric or raw materials? So first we have to figure out who we're targeting. And then we can, for example, the person who's who wants to create a collection for their retail store. Computer science engineers can come up with systems of managing the production, the communications, the logistics, and the stock of the products. Those would all have some sort of programming need for creating a system to seamlessly organize those different aspects of the supply chain. That's just one example. But it doesn't necessarily even have to be associated with computer science. I would say that the problem-solving skills that you have from computer science appointment with one of these craft communities to visit their production facility. Just a quick check if you can still hear me there.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I would suggest that if you can first make an appointment with one of these craft communities. Here in Assam, you have a lot of silk weavers and the producers. So they're growing the silkworms, they're taking care of the silkworms. Learn about the system that they use to produce their raw material. In the silk production, you have to get it from the silkworm. After you've got it from the silkworm, then you have to process the fiber. The fiber has to be made into yarns, and then the yarns are woven into fabric on a loom. And so each part of these processes sometimes are specialized by different parts of the community. And so I would suggest you learn about each of those steps. Production of the silk fiber from the silkworm, then the spinning of processing of the fiber into the yarn, or spinning into yarn, then the weaving of the yarn into fabric. There's a lot of steps in between that you need to learn about. Then, once you understand about the way that the raw material is made, you can learn about the way that it's sold. So after the finished product, the woven fabric, or here in Assam, a lot of the silk saris, then
Your voice is not coming now. You can switch off your video, only audio mode you use, please.
So probably he has lost it. Yeah.
Now it is okay.
And there's a lot of different types of retailers. You have the khadi shops, they're like government silk shops, or the craft cluster shops, sorry? You can get in touch. You can reach out to the Department of Textiles and try to find some more information there. Then once you learn about the market, you can figure out the way to improve some of the variables in the system. And as a computer scientist, you know about the systems, I think, and the different parts of systems. And so you can use your skill set in that way. Also, if you have an interest in working with these craft communities, it's a good idea to just first learn more about them. And so you can do that by, like I mentioned, getting in touch with the Department of Textiles, or trying to visit the makers themselves. If you go now on Instagram and you search for these specific keywords, or on Google, you can find a lot of the makers have their own websites. For Assam, the keywords would be Airy Silk, Muga Silk, Weavers Association, those sort of things. Silkworm producers in Assam. If you search those types of things, you'll find the producers, and then you can schedule an appointment and meet with them and take it from there. I hope that answers your question, SPMED. Do you have any further inquiry?
No, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your, it was really wonderful hearing to you. You had given a lot of insights, for the probabilities that we can gather from these communities. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. I'm still now, I think we have about 15 more minutes. I would like to invite more of you there if you're interested in asking any questions. I'll be able to answer a few more questions. But I'll tell you, actually, my interest is here in Assam. I do very much see so much beauty available here and sustainable resources that are available in Assam. One of my newest interests is bamboo. And bamboo is an incredible raw material that can be used for a wide range of products. So everything from building, which we see a lot of bamboo type structures in Assam, to weaving. The actual bamboo itself is woven for barriers, and it's woved, for walls and different things. Of course, we have many woven bamboo baskets that are used for different uses agriculturally and culturally. So a new unique product with bamboo is the bamboo fiber. There are some producers that are making bamboo fibers and then weaving it into bamboo textiles. So one group of people are promoting bamboo as the most sustainable product of the 21st century. So I'm interested in working in bamboo. Also, this silk textiles that are available in Assam are said to be some of the most exquisite silk available in all of the world. due to the way that the silk is processed and the species of silkworms that are used here, that are harvested here, sorry, and grown here. They then are made into both the silk saris and the silk fabrics and sold across India and across the world. And these actually have some of the highest value. Some of the Eri and Muga silk can sell for above 5,000–6,000 rupees per meter. And that's incredible. It's on the same value chain as the high-valued European and North American textiles, as it should be, which is another topic of what we're doing at Studio Bagru, is this, I had mentioned before, this price quality paradox, where we see that the similar product that is available in India in the craft sector of textiles is often sold in Europe at 100 times the amount that it's sold in India. And so some people argue that because of the standard of living or the living cost of living in Europe and North America, that it should be costing more. However, I don't feel that this is true. I think it should all be based off of the quality and of course the demand of product. And so these products that are being made in India are actually the same level, if not higher, to the products, the textiles available outside of India. So what we are trying to promote is actually that the same cost structure should be used. Because for the last 20 or 30 years, the products were valued lower coming from India, even though they were of the same, if not greater quality of the products available outside of India. And so only now recently, through our marketing and through our storytelling and collaborations, are the buyers from outside India starting to realize that these craft products are actually in the luxury sector, and they deserve to be treated as such from a price perspective.
Sir, hello. Hello.
Yes,
sir,
hi, how are you?
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Sir Jeremy. Well, thank you for your insightful ideas you shared with us. I would like to place my opinion, apart from the bamboo being the one of the most culturally valuable resource for us, so it has also a huge scope in terms of the technical resource. Like we being the technical institute, we are doing the projects whereby the bamboo is being, used as a reinforcement material. So we often do test on these material, and then at many times we found it to be, technically on the technical grounds to be very suitable material for the construction purpose. And then we often conduct major projects, minor projects, whereby students, they carry out the project works, and we have number of projects which make use of bamboo as a construction material. So, and apart from that, I would like to share incident where a man who constructed building during early 1990s, because of lack of the capital, instead of using the steel reinforcement, that man used a bamboo as a reinforcement in the slab, and then till date the building is still sound. So bamboo has an immense importance in the technical field as well, believe, sir.
Thank you for your thank you for sharing that with us. I think it's great to hear about the interest in bamboo. I am available. I think you'll have my contact information if you'd like to discuss more ways that we can innovate with bamboo. I'll just share one quick example of a colleague of mine who developed a bamboo bicycle company. It's called Bambike. I'll just share that in the chat. But what he's done is he's created the sustainable bicycles out of the bamboo. And I was always curious why this hasn't caught on here. The bicycles are a lot more expensive than the steel bicycles, but that's just because there's less people making them.
Exactly.
The other topic I'd like to touch on here in Assam, when it comes to engineering and craft in local traditional communities, is the agricultural aspect. And there's so many amazing agricultural technological advancements, you could say, over time, that have created a very robust agricultural system here. I was really astonished to find out about all of the different species of rice that are found in Assam. And so that's another really interesting topic of engineering, is how we're able to nurture and raise all of these different species of rice.
Yes.
So we have just about 5 more minutes left. If there's any final questions about the sustainability, craft, culture, raw materials, export, international business, or entrepreneurship, I would just love to hear from any of you. So I'll share also the presentation that I was trying to share along with this lecture. Inside the presentation, there are many links to videos and articles about our industry. And so I would love it if you were able to follow up with those. And if you have any questions about the work that we do or collaboration, I'm happy to interact. I'm be living in Assam for just about 1 more month. And during that time, I'm looking to network with those interested in creating sustainable projects with different raw materials, and also interested in all of these different craft communities that are working in Assam. So thanks again for joining me and bearing with me through some of the technical issues. Apologies for that in the beginning. Thanks to Mr. Raman.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes?
One last question. Can you just drop your email and your contact information so that we can contact you for any such, collaborative projects and everything, because we have a entrepreneurship cell in our university, an active one. So we can just contact you for share, so that you can come down, and if you can come down and share your experience and everything.
Yeah, that would be great. So I hope that's okay, Mr. Raman.
Yes, sir.
So he has already shared it in the chat box. You can see, I think.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
At gmail.com and fritzhand.com, maybe it is his website.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So, Jeremy, you finished? Can you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll finish. Thank you much. Thank you again also to the Nagaon Polytechnical Institute for hosting me, and I'll be available if anybody is interested.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jeremy, for your amazing speech. Actually, you could not present because of some technical difficulties, and I am still struggling to find the right words to properly describe how fantastic your session was. Thank you so much for delivering to us such a remarkably outstanding session. So you are really an inspiration. Thank you, Jeremy, once again.
Thank you too. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you.
So, dear delegates, thank you for making time through this presentation. It was lively, engaging, educative, and fulfilling because of your presence only.